Okay, it looks like I'm live. So I'm just going to try to show you guys how I swatch my paints. I'm going to use Renaissance paints today, as that's the ones that I'm most familiar with. And I want to show you what I've done with my palettes. So I have 3 palettes here, and I've labeled each one. This one is my palette that has all 55 half pans, and this is the swatch that I made for it. And what I've done is I've taken the rail out of that was here out of it, and then I put magnets on the back of each pan, and they stick in. And so with this method, I can get 55 half pans into one palette. So that works out really well. And then this is what I'm going to show you how to make today. This is my swatch that I have, and I've made a plastic laminated sleeve that this will then go in and out of. So if I want to switch things around, I can pretty easily. So this is that palette. And then we're going to get to the Intense tube paints. And those are, there are 70 in the line, and so I need 2 palettes for that. So I've used these, and what I've done is I've kept the rails here, and then I've just added magnets to the center, the pans that go in the center, and I can get 12 more. So I can get 36 in each palette. And the thing that I love about these palettes is that they actually lock into place. I didn't realize that, but if you open this one and then you click this, you can kind of hear it locks into place, so it's not going to go anywhere. And then what I've done is I've taken this porcelain tray that I purchased on Muji. It's in their bath section, and that goes right here in the top. So I prefer mixing on porcelain over the metal tin, but you can use either. So what I've done is, and this is going to go up in my shop, but I've used my Cricut cutter, and I've created a template that will give me a stencil for these to use with these pans. So in this case, because I only have 3 rows, I've cut it down, but the template itself will be large enough for 48. But I'll show you how to adjust it to whatever size you want. So that's what we're going to do today. So this is my first time streaming, and so far we have no viewers, which is fine because that's giving me a chance to sort of get my bearings and hopefully work out any kinks that there might be. So for this, I've got a 0.3 millimeter pencil, and I'm just going to very lightly trace this template. And I'm using B cotton paper today. It's some that I get on Amazon, and it's 100% cotton. And I really like it, and it's very economical. I usually get it in I think it's 50 sheets in the 6x9 format. And so you're just going to go through, and I'm just going to trace each block. And I may try to see about editing this video. I'm not really sure. Depends on, I'm on the upside of the learning curve on all of this. You may have visited my shop. My shop on Etsy is A Little Creative Me, and I just went live with my website this week, and you can find me at www.alittlecreative.me. And there I've been able to feature several artists that have used my paints and reviewed them and enjoyed them. And so I have linked their bios as well as their YouTube videos. So it's a really great place to come. And I'm going to be, I'm going to continue to upload and update my blog. That's something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. I just love this community so much. Everybody has been just so generous and so kind, and I would love to be able to provide some content as well, because I just feel like I've been on the receiving end of the YouTube family, I guess, for a long time, and so it would be nice to give back some. Now, I just noticed that when I was doing this, I actually did all 4 rows instead of stopping at 3. And so instead of erasing that 4th row, what I'm going to do is just alter my plan and do 6 rows and do 1 master sheet for the whole set, since I already have these made for the individuals. So I think that will work out well. And so in order to adjust, what I do is I just line this up. So I want 2 more rows. So I'm just going to line this up, and I'm going to have to erase. Let me just erase this bottom line first. Get my kneaded eraser real quick. Okay, so then I'm just going to, I know I have 4, so I want 2 more. So I'm going to line it up with the second set of squares. I'm just going to go ahead and stick my tape down. And then I'm going to go ahead. So if you wanted to use this to do a watercolor mixing chart, you could, and you could make this 12 down if you wanted. You could do 12 and 12 across and just keep shifting it down each time. So I found when I was in Poland, I found this ruler that was just, it wasn't like this, but it was a plastic ruler that had squares cut out of it. And I thought, this was maybe 3 years ago, and I thought, what a good idea that would be to make it easy to swatch half pans. And so what I've done is, so I purchased the, hang on just a second, my son's coming in. So I just, I took that idea, and then instead of just doing 1 row of squares, what I ended up doing is creating the full template. So it works out well. And then I had mentioned that in this palette, instead of having they're not perfect squares, they're actually slight rectangles. So they're more, they're narrow across and taller. And so in this case, what I've done is, in order to get 5 rows, I've had to put them on the side instead of up and down. And so if I wanted to use this same template, all I would need to do is turn it over and measure it out that way. I hope that makes sense. So I just got distracted with my son who came in. So I'm just trying to kind of get my bearings, but this is, I don't know if you can see this. Let me see if I can lift it up, if that shows it any better. But you can see how I've got a kind of a base outline to work with. And so after I have used my pencil, what I like to do is just take some kneaded eraser and kind of go through and clean that up just very, very slightly, so that any graphite's not going to mix with my paints. You can see I'm not really erasing as much as I am just picking up loose graphite. And then this little edge right here, I do want to erase because that was a little mistake. I've learned through so many different artists on YouTube that kneaded eraser is a good eraser to use for watercolor. because it doesn't mar the paper at all. So with these paints, they're very juicy, so they don't need much spritzing at all to activate them. But I do like to just do a little bit with a fine mist just to kind of get them going a little bit. So for this sake of the video, I'm going to move one of these palettes out of the way and just work with one at a time, just so I have a little more room to work with. You might be able to see my brush holder. This is a soap dish that I was able to find at Bed Bath & Beyond, and it's perfect for laying my brushes out to dry. I have 2 jars of water, a dirty one and a clean one, and the clean one is pretty important for the lighter colors. So I'm just going to turn everything. Hopefully you can see that. I'm going to go into the white. This one is titanium white. I'm going to go ahead and use my chart so I can be talking about it as I swatch. You're not going to be able to see that. Another idea, and I've done this with some of my palettes, is I've taken a black Sharpie and I've made across, just a stripe through each block so that you can see transparency and opacity. But in this case, I have not done that. I tend to know, because I've been working with them for so long, which paints are transparent, which ones are opaque, and so I just kind of go with that. This is another little trick that I adapted I took a class with Danielle Donaldson, and she had the big Robax palette, and she uses a little mini binder clip to put in each well of the paints that she's going to use, so she can keep track. When it comes to palettes like this, there's no well, and so what I've done is just taken a teeny tiny magnet and wrapped it into washi tape and made a little flag, and that will show me where I want to go. I don't know if you can see that. This is what the flag looks like. And that will just give me an idea of sort of where I'm going. So now I'm going into Chinese white, which is a little more transparent than titanium. It's good for mixing. I tend to not use a lot of whites in my painting, but Lindsay from the Frugal Crafter just had a really great video on using whites in watercolor, and I highly recommend it. I will try to remember to link it in the bottom. Next, we have Naples Yellow Hue. No, Naples Yellow Pale. In the way I make my swatches, I've tried a lot. I'm sort of swatching is sort of my happy place. If I don't really feel like creating something, but I want to play in paints, I make swatches, and it's kind of silly, I know, because nobody needs this many paints or this many swatches, but it makes me happy, so I do it. So where was I going with that? I have no idea. I've lost my train of thought. Next, we're going to Naples Yellow Deep. This color reminds me of the Holbein Jaune Brilliant that Cee Cee from Creation Cee Cee uses. It's a little less pink and more, I guess, brown than the Holbein version, but I like it. Next, we have Naples Yellow Red. Naples Yellow Red is a really good kind of base color to work with skin tones, for Caucasian skin tones anyway. And it's a good color, especially if you are doing portraits and things like that. Just see if there's any chat. Doesn't look like yet. Okay, so now we're up to Titan Yellow, and you can see I have a little bit of red in there, so I'm just going to clean that up. I'm going to use this cloth to kind of wipe it up. This one's very, very pale. It would remind me of the Venetian yellow that we sell in the pan form. It's just an extremely pale yellow that's kind of hard to pick up on camera, but I can pick it up. I don't know if that will show. We've got the time change today, and so now that it's 20 minutes after 4, it's getting dark here in Maine, which is pretty hard for me. I don't really like the time change and the dark days. I think I'm going to start trying to get up earlier in the morning so that I can take advantage of extra light. Next, we have lemon yellow. This is a great color. When I'm making my swatches, I like to do sort of an up and down motion, and then sort of connect it at the top and the bottom. Everybody swatches differently, but I like to use a round brush. I think that's maybe where I was going before when I lost my train of thought. I like to use a round brush, but because I just find that I get more control with that point than using a flat brush. But everybody likes different things. And one thing that I've noticed over the years with all the swatching that I've done is that the brush matters in terms of how your swatches look. If you have a brush that is largely synthetic, that's going to yield a specific kind of swatch vibrancy, I guess, than if you were using one that was natural bristles. So I'd like to do an experiment sometime and just maybe do a video with swatching with different brushes with the same color and see how it differs. So the next color we have is Chrome Yellow Hue. Another good color. Again, I'm just going up and down so that the whole edge, the entire edge is wet on both sides, and then I go across on the top and across on the bottom, and I check to see if I have any sort of puddles, and I wipe it on my towel. Cadmium Yellow Pale. If you were setting up a palette, you certainly wouldn't need all of these yellows. I find yellow to be a fairly, it's an important staple, but it's not, yellows tend to not make me super excited or super unexcited. It's just kind of one of those necessary tools in your toolbox. Next, we have Aureolin Hue. And this is a hue and not the genuine form, because the genuine form is not light fast and does something kind of funky when it is exposed to light. It turns actually brown. I believe it was Dr. Otto Kano had a video on that. was fascinating. Next, we have transparent yellow, which looks very different. This is one of those examples of why you want to swatch your colors, because if you look at this in the pan, it has kind of a yellow-brown color, but when you actually swatch it out, it's quite vibrant and bright. You can see the mass tone is dark. This is one of those times where I would want to blot just so that I can get the mass tone kind of out of there. Next is a fairly unique color. It would remind me a little bit of maybe a Quinn Gold Deep or maybe Daniel Smith's Aussie Red Gold. It's called Transparent Gold Ochre, and I like it quite a lot. Let me move my little tab. We're on the last one of this row. And again, this is one of those that has a mass tone that's pretty dark, but then let me show you when I get my brush when it looks quite different pale. Can you see that? Let's see if that will focus. It's quite a pretty color. I like this one so much. It's definitely a favorite. So now we're on row 2, and because there's nothing metal for the magnet to stick to, I'm just going to go ahead and stick it on the top and know that I'm in the second row. So we're doing cadmium yellow deep. I'm going to spritz these just a little bit more so they can be getting more juicy. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. Again, I'm doing both jars when I'm doing these lighter colors. In the darker colors, sometimes I forget, but with the lighter colors, I like to do both. This is cadmium orange. It's a really pretty color. I don't use a lot of oranges in my work. I tend to be more of a blue-green kind of gal, but it's quite pretty. See if that goes any closer, if that helps at all. New to streaming, so I don't know if that helps or doesn't help, but we'll see. Next, we have one of my favorites, Indian Yellow. This is PY83. I'm just going to get that excess up. Move my tab. Now I have chromium orange hue. Next we have Cadmium Red Pale, just PR108. And next we have Scarlet Red, which is a PR254. Next we have Cad Red Medium. Again, I'm just going side to side and then joining at the top just so I prevent getting a harsh line. I like to keep everything really wet. Next we have another PR108, which is a Cad Red Deep. That one kind of got messy. For my backing board, what I've done and what I'm using is just a piece of foam core that I've covered in white contact paper so that it's waterproof. And these hold up for a long time and they're super cheap. So that's what I tend to use. So next we have Permanent Carmine. This is a unique pigment. I haven't heard of this pigment before, and I haven't seen anything about it on handprint, but it's pigment red 48:4. So I'm not really sure what that means, but that's what it says. I got maybe a little too much paint on my brush, so I'm gonna put this up so I can see a little better. Next we have Cadmium Bordeaux, which is a really deep kind of burgundy color that's pretty. just going to tilt it so that that pool is in one spot for me to kind of mop up. This is how I avoid cauliflowers or blooms. Next I have Quinn Red. It's PV19. It's a really pretty kind of pinky red. Hi, Dryad. Thanks for joining. You're my first comment. I appreciate it. Okay, and next we have Purple Magenta. This is the last one in this row. There we go. So we've done 2 rows now. So we've got 24 down and 12 more to go in this palette. I'll probably only do 1 palette per stream just for sake of time. We're already at 32 minutes and you guys are literally watching paint dry. So we'll break it up. Now I have Manganese Violet. It's a really pretty color. It's a granulating violet lilac kind of color that's just beautiful. Definitely one of my favorites. And which is interesting because I'm not a huge purple fan, but apparently I've learned that I am a big granulating fan. And so I just really like the way this one granulates. Oh, thank you, Rosemary. I really appreciate it. That's so nice to hear. I love your feedback. I'm sorry you can't get them in England. I know that I'm not able to sell my paints in England either. And I know that a lot of our friends in the UK struggle with getting some of the products that we enjoy here. Next, we have Ultramarine Violet, which is a little bluer. It's really another pretty color. These next, we're kind of entering this stage that is sort of my, like Rosemary said, my weak in the knees sort of colors. I just really love these blues and purples and greens. Thanks, Dryad. I do think the colors are yummy. I really enjoyed working with them. They're a lot of fun. Mineral Violet is actually a pretty strong color, so I'm going to go ahead and bring my porcelain tray so that I can just get a little on here so that I don't overwhelm my swatch. Again, I got this porcelain tray. It was in the bathroom accessory section of Muji. I was able to find it online, and it's a great size for these palettes. Sure, this brush is actually one, I don't know if you can see it. I don't know if that's focusing or not. It's made by Renesans, the same company as the paints. And it's super pointed. I don't know if you can see sort of how pointed that edge is, but it's just a needle point, and I really have enjoyed using it. I don't currently sell them in my shop yet. I'm not sure. Just getting the shipping situated and all of that, it can be challenging to add new products. So I'm trying to sort of get my feet under me with the products that I have before I add more. But I really wanted to try them, and I've been really, really pleased with them. Thanks for asking. Now we have our famous ultramarine blue, which is a staple on every palette. It's just such a great color. I was watching a stream with Eve Bolt yesterday, and we were talking about, she was talking about, and I was commenting in the chat about just color temperatures and how it's really hard for me to view color temperatures when it comes to the blues. You know, I think of reds as being warm and blues as being cool, but then when you break it up into more categories within each color, it's challenging, and she did a really good job of sort of showing that. Oh, I didn't know you were in Finland, Dryad. That's really great. So you can get Renaissance in Finland. That's terrific. What are some of your favorite brushes? And do you use them for watercolors? I've only tried, I have a few samples of some of their other lines, but this is the one that 1097 is the line that I tend to use the most. Oh, I forgot to move my little tabby. So I don't know if you can see how that ultramarine violet is granulating, and the manganese violet. They're just so pretty. So I'm going to move my tab so that I can keep track. So I'm 4 in, so I'm going to put my little flag there. I don't know if the camera can see that. Let me know if you missed that part. Now we're in Prussian blue, which is another color that I really like. I know some people don't because it has a kind of a funky Lightfastness issue, but I enjoy it quite a bit. Apparently, it will lose Lightfastness, but then when you stick it in a dark room, it will come back, which just seems so bizarre to me, but apparently that's its deal. But it reminds me of phthalo blue a little bit, but I find phthalo blue so hard to control. Oh, good, Dryad. So you like this brand too, this line too. That's good to know. Rosemary, they do glide over the paper. You're right. I think for me, I really like using synthetics personally, just because I prefer synthetics over animal fibers. But this one is particularly smooth. I find it to be really interesting. I don't know. I haven't started selling them just because I don't know what the brush market here is like, and if they would have a place. So I'm just kind of waiting to see kind of how things go. Next we have Aureolin, which I think is a PB15, which is like a phthalo. I know some countries call it yeah, it is PB15-3. Some call it Helio, some call it phthalo. I think it's the same thing. But it's not your typical cerulean. It's a phthalo pigment. This is my first stream. So if you guys have any sort of constructive feedback, or if there's something that you, if you can't see, if you can let me know, that would be really helpful, just because, you know, I want to improve, and And that's how I learn. I can't really tell what you guys are seeing. I have a light, but I don't have it on because when I had it on before in the test, it looked like it was providing a lot of glare. And so, so I didn't have an extra light, but I can certainly try if you guys are struggling to see anything. Next, we have phthalo blue. Dryad, do you order your Renaissance online? Is there a shipper there in Finland that you get them through? Or do you get them from Poland? How does that work? Next, we have Cobalt Blue Pale. I'm going to spritz these back ones. Got too much water on my brush. What? Well, I don't think I can go closer with my webcam, unfortunately. I'm not sure what I did, but I did something. Are you still there? Hold on just a second. Sorry, guys. Look away so that you don't get seasick or motion sick. I don't think I can go any closer. I'll have to get my techie sons to help me with that. I don't know, Rosemary, if you saw the stream that I was able to do with Lindsay last week, or I guess a week ago Friday. We live in the same state, and so I was able to drive up and meet her and do a live stream, and she was so gracious and so much fun, and I feel like I made a new friend. But I know exactly what you mean about, you know, all of the different things that she's able to get, and you can kind of feel like, gosh, I need to have all of it in order to paint like her. And I think what she would say is that, you know, you need to use what you have and practice with it. And so I think it's the artist behind the brush that makes the brush really special. And although good brushes certainly help, and nice paint certainly help, but her studio was amazing. She has a lot of really great things, and she just, I think over the weekend, posted a video about another set of paints that she was able to get on Amazon. And you know, I sell Renaissance, so I have paints all over, but she makes you want to buy them just because they look unique and interesting. And so she's a lot of fun to watch. Oh, wow, Dryad, you live near a shop that sells it. That's really cool. Yeah, with me, I don't know if you guys have been to my Etsy store. I talk about it a little bit there, and and also on my website. But we didn't have any source for Renaissance paints. I had never heard of them until I went on vacation in Poland, and that was when I found them and saw just how neat they were, and that I couldn't get them. Of course, you know, Rosemary, you probably know you want what you can't have, and so So I pursued the company and asked if I could sell those here in the United States, having never done anything like that before. And they were wonderful and lovely to work with, and said, yes, we would love to have a distributor. And they gave me the rights to distribute in the United States and Canada. And so it's been just really a strange and wonderful experience. It's something I never really thought I would do. I was a stay-at-home mom for most of my adult years with my kids, and now my kids are grown and I turned 50 and I launched a business. So it's been a lot of fun. But I have a lot to learn. And so I'm just trying to learn whatever I can. And so today I'm learning to stream, and you guys are with me, and I really, really appreciate that. And Rosemary, I'm so glad that you found me through that stream and subscribed. That means a lot. I did get quite a few subscribers after that stream, and so that was really fun. So that's a little bit of my story. Next we're getting to the end of this palette. We have Cobalt Blue Deep, and I think Cobalt Blue Deep is actually the cerulean pigment. Let me just pry this out. It's wet, so I don't want to get my finger in it. Yes, it's PB36. So I would have named that cerulean, but they're calling it Cobalt Blue Deep. I didn't get my finger in the blue, but I did get it in the red. It's another great color. I would say more on the opaque side, which is typical for cerulean. It's a great color for skies. I'm just going to rinse my brush to kind of dilute some of that a little bit. And then I'm going to tilt my board so that I have a puddle. And I'm going to mop it. So your feedback is that you would like the camera to be closer, which is really helpful. I think I can do that in the future when I'm not streaming, so that I don't make you guys sick. I have a very interesting little setup here that's sort of a cobbled together stand made out of an old embroidery frame that I used when I did embroidery. I'm just going to see if I can clean that up. Yeah, that's better. That one might be a little funky. We'll see. Next, and I probably am butchering the name because I have it on my swatch. I have it Ind Blue, but it's Indian Throne, I think, blue. But I could be, again, getting that name wrong. But this is PB60, which is, we talked about actually on this stream. Oh, thank you, Dryad. I really appreciate that. Bigger swatches. That's really helpful too. I will try to do that. If you go to the Etsy store, you can see big swatches, but I can see where, with seeing it painted, a bigger swatch would be good. I mostly wanted to show my little template that I'm going to be selling. I don't know if you can see, it's a plastic template for a swatch that will fit in your sets. So that's why they're small, but I really do appreciate that feedback. I think that's really helpful. No, I didn't have a shop before. I had an Etsy store that I put a few like yards of fabric that I was trying to get rid of, but I mean it was just not really a shop. It was more of just a way of, it was like an eBay alternative for me. I didn't know really how to do anything about with I mean I have two grown sons who are very tech savvy, and so they help me a lot. But really, selling the Renaissance paints has been sort of the driving force in getting the shop, just because I really liked them so much, and I really thought that other people would like them too, and I just hated that they weren't available. So had there been a shop in the United States or in Canada where I could have mail ordered them, I wouldn't be selling them. I would just be buying them. So it's kind of an interesting thing. It's a good question. Oh, thanks, Dryad. Yeah, I don't know if you guys were here at the very beginning of my stream, but I was talking about this ruler that I found in Poland a few years ago, and it was just a clear plastic ruler. It was sort of like a template, and it just had these little squares cut out of it, and it sort of sparked the idea to make a template with my Cricut cutter. So that's what I did. But I interrupted myself. I do that a lot. But the color I'm doing now is that Indian Throne blue, which is PB60 that Lindsay and I were talking about. It's such a great color that really doesn't get a lot of attention, but it's a really, I like it better than indigo for sure. And now we have indigo. That's the next one. And I think this is a mix. The Renaissance version is a mix. But you can see just even the difference. Well, there it's dark, but it's really not, I don't think it's as vibrant as the Indian Throne blue. And I can tell that I have a big puddle, so I'm going to tilt my board. Wipe off my brush. And then go through. And last on this palette, we have Cobalt Turquoise. Using that little needle tip of this brush. It reminds me, this brush reminds me, I don't know, Rosemary, if you have access to low Cornell brushes, but there's a brush that they make that I think it's called Ultra Round, and it's super pointed as well. That's the only brush I've ever tried that reminds me of this one, but they're just great brushes. So there it is. Let's see if you can see it. Everything is backwards on my camera. So those are the colors. Rosemary, you know, I've had a few inquiries of people wanting to buy in the UK, and what I've done is just forwarded that to the exporter in Poland. And I don't know, they do have distributors throughout Europe, but I don't know what their policies are for other distributors. And I don't know. I know, like, for example, they don't want, they're allowing me to sell in Canada because there's no Canadian distributor, but they really want to, they're very loyal to the people they have distributing for them, which is, there's an amazing company to work with. It's been interesting because for me, you know, I just wanted to sell I just wanted the paints. I just thought they were amazing and wanted to sell them and thought their product was great. And then this summer I was able to go to Poznan, Poland, and meet the owner, it's a couple, the owners and the export manager that I work with. And I fell in love with them so much. I was, you know, you don't know what you don't know. And so for me to love the paints, but really not know a lot about the people who are behind the paints, I was willing to take that risk. But once I met them, it completely surpassed all my expectations. I'm just so fond of all of them. And I love that, you know, they really want to provide really good quality art supplies at affordable